Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next, approve the agenda.
There are no changes to the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Bryce, second by Amanda. No presentation, proclamations, or acknowledgements, so we'll open up to public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to come forward and speak to the council that is not already on our agenda, please step up to the podium. State your name, address. I know that's anybody. Any changes on the consent agenda or anything that anybody would like to pull off and discuss?
Nope. Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Bryce. There are no public hearings, so we go into general business.
First item on the agenda tonight under general business is Encore Holdings application for an ordinance text amendment, and Haley will remain the presentation on that.
Alrighty, good evening, council. So this is just going to be a quick presentation regarding Encore Holdings LLC's request for an ordinance text amendment. So just a little bit of background. The city received a land use application from Encore Holdings requesting an ordinance text amendment. And more specifically, the request was that the city consider amending our B2 downtown business district to allow motor vehicle sales and recreational vehicle sales and rental as an interim use. And this request is really being made in association with a specific property, which is 320 Main Street. That's the old coffin guard station. However, it's really important throughout this presentation and the discussion to keep in mind that any potential amendments would apply to the entire district. So I would really urge to focus less on that specific property and just the whole district. So since the request is to allow the use as an interim use, I just kind of wanted to highlight the purpose of interim use permits as stated in our city code. So there are three different purposes. One is to allow a use for a temporary period of time until a permanent location is obtained or while the permanent location is under construction. To allow a use that is presently judged acceptable by the city council, but with anticipated development or redevelopment will not be acceptable in the future or will be replaced in the future by a permitted or conditional use. And then finally, to allow a use which is reflective of anticipated long-range change, but isn't necessarily permitted as is today. So considering these three purposes, the one that we would focus on, or the one that staff thinks fits under the request, would be that second one, which would be that the city council would have to find that it's an okay use now, or it's judged acceptable, but maybe won't be in the future. So just a quick overview on the zoning. As I stated, the request is specific to the B2 Downtown Business District. This district, as of right now, encompasses what is downtown Newmarket. However, staff would like to note that in the future it could also encompass downtown Elko. As a separate project, we're currently working on just revising and reviewing our business districts, and that's a consideration that is being made. The purpose of the B2 Downtown Business District specifically is to provide for a mix of business and multifamily housing in the downtown, as directed by the city's downtown master plan. And then just to kind of summarize some of the permitted uses that you would find in this district, it's retail, office, clinics, commercial recreation, like art institutions or museums, restaurants. So really just those typical downtown uses that you would think or imagine when you hear downtown. However, it's important to note that parking lots as a principal use are also permitted. And then as a conditional use within this district, accessory outdoor sales and display is permitted. However, here the focus is really on accessory. So when they're requesting motor vehicle sales, even though it's outdoor sales and display, that becomes a principal use and isn't really accessory to anything. So this is just a map of our current zoning in the city. This sort of cross-hatched red and pink is the B2 district that we are focusing on tonight. And then just to note, if it ever does also incorporate original Elko town site, that would be over in this area. Also worth noting is that currently, under our city code, motor vehicle sales are permitted in our B6 business warehousing district and our B4, which is the highway business district, both of which are really intended to be located out at the interchange. So in this draft land use map, these two zoning districts would most occur in this light pink, which is a business and limited industrial land use. So continuing on with the land use discussion, our downtowns, both Newmarket and Elko, are incorporated or correspond with the town center land use designation. And the objective of the town center land use is to retain attributes of a recognized downtown and provide a sense of place based on historic nature of building character elements. It's to be recognized as a civic, commercial, and cultural gathering place for the community, and really intended to provide specialized retail, whether that's like shops or boutiques, and not just be, another shopping node. This land use is also distinguished with pedestrian circulation and then limited residential uses. And then again, similar to the zoning, there's just a list of typical uses that is expected to be found within this land use category. The focus here is really mixed-use buildings where you would find commercial on the lower level and residential uses above. So since the purpose of the B2 district is to provide for a mix of business and multifamily as directed by the city's downtown master plan, it's important that we all understand what the vision in that master plan is. This master plan was commissioned by the city of Newmarket in 2005. However, it's still recognized and utilized by the city today as we get interest or inquiries about development within the downtown area. The downtown master plan envisions a mixed-use core that will provide primarily retail uses on the first floor, again with a housing or office above, as well as a potential for that residential above that as well. In addition to a mixed-use core on the fringes, it identifies a downtown neighborhood district that is really intended to be high-density multifamily housing. Further, this plan calls for a horizontal and vertical mix of uses that focus on reinforcing the public open space and again, that pedestrian circulation to encourage activity at the street level, promote daytime activity with shoppers and workers, and then of course, as you would expect in a downtown, to provide evening entertainment opportunities. So this is just a screenshot of the map or the vision that's contained in the Newmarket Downtown Master Plan. These pinkish peach colored buildings encompass the mixed-use core. And then the ones with the orange rooftops are kind of those fringe high-density residential that we would expect to see kind of surrounding it. So now that I've kind of overviewed the vision or what is expected with development and redevelopment within these areas, since the purpose of the interim use is judging the use to be presently acceptable, I think it's also important just to note the existing conditions within the downtown. So of course, any new and redevelopment would have to meet the requirements and guidelines for the town center land use, the B2 district, and the downtown master plan. However, within the downtown, there are several existing uses that are grandfathered and are considered legal non-conforming. The majority of those uses are detached single family. However, there is minor auto repair, a motor fuel station, and a distribution facility as well. And then just a note on grandfathered or the legal non-conforming uses, they are permitted to continue as long as the use is not expanded or enlarged, and the property does not remain vacant for more than 1 year.
Really just clarification.
Yeah.
And that particular use continues in operation.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
if
not
it
just
stops for
vacancy.
more than 1 year, yes, yeah, right. That's true. Someone could take it over and then start a permitted use. So Tom's right, it hasn't necessarily remained vacant, but if that use is discontinued for a year, that would apply as well. Thank you, Tom. So then here again is just kind of a closer up image of this downtown area that we're talking about encompassed in red, the 2020 aerial imagery. And then these next few slides are just some street level views. The top one is St. Joseph Street. You see mostly residential. The bottom is a continuation along St. Joseph Street with Twin Cities Greeting, which is a distribution facility there. I think that's a repeat picture perhaps, or later down St. Joseph Street, and then Church Street, again, we continue to see mostly residential. However, you see double wide on the left in the top picture. Some old single-family homes that were remodeled to accommodate business. So those are now occupied as commercial, TDF, the old hotel. Existing single-family. You see the strip mall with Anytime Fitness and the massage studio, and then the old Coffenberg station. So again, to reiterate, the request could meet one of the purposes of the interim use permit, and that purpose was specifically to allow a use that is presently judged acceptable, but might not be with anticipated development or redevelopment. And so using this identified purpose as a basis, the city council would have to find that motor recreational vehicle sales and rental is presently acceptable within the B2 downtown district. Since the request is for an interim use permit, it's also important to note that if this specific request for the ordinance amendment is supported, then the applicant would also need to apply after this for the interim use permit. So they would basically have to go through this process again to get the interim use permit once the use is allowed as an interim use. That procedure is similar to that of a conditional use permit or variance, so it is reviewed by the Planning Commission, there is a public hearing, and then ultimately it is either approved or denied by the City Council. And as part of an application for an interim use permit, the City Council may place any conditions that they deem appropriate. So that can be related to the termination date of the interim use, conditions on inventory, or inventory that's stored outside or inside of the building, the parking location of said motor vehicles. It's pretty much open to interpretation or whatever conditions are necessary. So upon evaluating the request against the zoning, the downtown master plan, the land use, at this time it is staff's recommendation, or staff is not supportive of this request, primarily because it is not consistent with the zoning or the land use or the future vision within the downtown. Really that focuses on retail and high density residential, and specialized retail where motor vehicles might not fit within that. And although parking lots are permitted as a principal use in the B2 district, it's staff opinion that car sales, even though you could argue it's just a parking lot, it feels and functions much differently. You know, it's not a short-term car that's parked there for a customer to go in and out of a store. They're there long-term. So the Planning Commission did review this request and held a public hearing at their May meeting. There was one commissioner, Commissioner Smith, that was supportive of the request, and he primarily stated that he is supportive because it does promote business in the downtown rather than seeing or the potential for empty or vacant buildings. And since the request is for an interim use, it does give the city the ability to approve it for a short time period and then the opportunity to reevaluate if needed. 3 of the commissioners were opposed to the request, Commissioner Krupman, Schrader, and Pipo. And they had several concerns, one being that since the request would allow motor vehicle sales as an interim use throughout the downtown district, there's potential for more than one. They were also concerned about the perpetual continuation of the use through an interim use permit. So the applicant could apply for an interim use permit, get one for, let's say, 5 years. That 5-year time period comes, they want to reapply, and it's maybe a little bit harder for the council to deny them since it's an established business within the community. They also noted concern for the appearance of the vehicles. They weren't sure what the inventory might look like, if they're in mint condition or kind of old junkers. And there was a specific note related to recreational vehicles. And then finally, they just commented on the inconsistency with the city's vision for the downtown. So ultimately, the Planning Commission did recommend denial of the request on a 3-1 vote. So at this time, we're really just looking for council feedback and discussion, and then to act on the request. That action could look different depending on whether the request is supported or not. So if supported, we would just look for direction regarding preparing such an ordinance amendment. And if not supported, we would look for a motion for denial of the request based on the attached findings of fact and decision that was included in the packet. And I would like to note that Bo and Kelly Gensmer are both here in the audience tonight. They're representing Encore Holdings. And they have indicated to staff that they would like to address the commission on some of the Planning Commission concerns, if you are welcome to comment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak. Sorry that some of people are out sick. Basically, I wanted just to start, a lot of the notes, I wasn't able to make the meeting, so I just wanted to start with some of the excerpts that Haley had hit on from the Planning Commission meeting. Hopefully I can answer kind of any of the open-ended questions and alleviate some of the concerns. Just starting with Commissioner Smith, when he said that he was supportive of the interim request, our overall goal, we are looking for a mixed-use commercial residential in that area, but currently right now, the demand just isn't there, and the construction cost is just cost prohibitive to put it in there. Perfect example of that is Prior Lake right now. They actually have an almost identical situation going on, where they have an investor bought an automotive repair shop, and they were looking to relocate the auto repair shop just down off the main district, and they were going to put a mixed use, but they had found out that due to increased construction costs, that they weren't able to do that. Back onto the demand aspect of it, you know, right now, when we look around, Prior Lake right now has a vacancy of about 40 to 50% of their commercial spaces that are available for office space. Even if we look downtown, where the New Market Bank is right now, we do have 4 spots that are open, and that building is newer, and, you know, I've been here for about 3 years. I've not seen that to be completely filled. The reason that we're looking for the auto dealership to be, auto sales to be allowed here, is because that is actually allowing us, with the increased revenue from the lease that they will actually pay, for us to move forward with not only making the actual building look more appealing in the short term, but also allowing us to possibly remove the house and put proper grading there, which will be now more, which will actually get us on the path to getting more to the 2030 vision when it comes to a point where the demand is there to put the commercial use on the bottom and the residential on top. A couple of the other concerns here I think Haley had noted is that the number of vehicles and the signage is pretty much can be dictated by City Council. Nobody is opposed to that. Also too, the actual inquiries. I mean, what we're asking for is a short-term use here, and that again is to allow us to have the revenue that we can again turn the existing building that is going on right now. We can actually, we have put money into it, as anybody's seen, on the exterior. There was, and actually cleaned a lot of it up. I actually personally lost count after about 47 tires that we actually had to remove out of there. There was a lot of stuff there. I mean, a lot of motor oil, cars, so on and so forth. But with that said, that we have originally, we're looking to actually keep the tenant that was currently there. They were not interested. I've not been able to find anybody that is looking to lease the spot that would even cover the taxes and insurance at this point. The auto dealership would allow us not only to cover those costs, but to give us we'll have increased revenue again to move forward with the demolish of the house, proper grading, finish the appeal aspect of it, the new roof, a couple other aspects that we have to do to the building. So that in the short term, at least that we have a building that is very appealing to other businesses and to the community at large. Other aspects that have been brought up that weren't noted, somebody had mentioned that there was, in New Prague, that there was no dealerships in the downtown district. I think they were referring to the actual new car dealerships that are outside of the city limits. That's Jeff Belzer and Ford. But there are actually 2 used car dealerships down there, and they are in the downtown district, and they are doing very well. And they have been there for some time. It is called the Car Lot and Truck Buyer Services, New Prague. With that also said, I had submitted some things that will benefit the actual city at large. We believe with the consistency of the vehicles as a parking lot, we can't economically discriminate against anybody about what type of vehicle that they want to park there. So when Haley says rust buckets, somebody wants to put that there, I can't tell them no. And that's exactly what this would be. Without the use of a sales car lot, we're just going to have a parking lot, we're going to have 2 empty buildings. That's it. I can't get anybody in there to lease it. So with that said, with what the car sales lot does, these guys are not into restoring cars that are demolished or salvaged vehicles. These are usually near mint to mint condition. And they actually have to keep, their business is all about selling these things and to have them visually appealing to anybody that's driving by and comes to look at it. So they have to consistently wash them, wax them, have them detailed. So the actual cars there, having the car sales lot is actually going to have more of a visual appeal than just anybody who wants to park something at the parking lot. Also with that said, I have spoke to some of the businesses that are down this main drag, some of the restaurants that are available, or that are open. I spoke to the owner of the End Zone. I spoke to one of the people that worked at the Double Wide. Unfortunately, I was not able to talk to anybody over at the firehouse because currently they obviously don't have enough business now, unfortunately, not to open before 4 o'clock. But they were very supportive of it because with the car lot, that we will have individuals coming from multiple areas here. And that they will be coming here and that they will obviously, when they come down here, they'll be using, they'll go have lunch. And another aspect that I talked to the actual auto dealership was to see that maybe that they would give out gift cards and so on and so forth, so people would go out and actually spend money at the local establishments. The other point too is that there's also individuals that have came to the shop when actually I was there, and they're looking for some type of employment and so on and so forth. And we actually have somebody that works for Southwest Airlines that the auto buy or car shop would actually hire on. So this would actually give some employment to local members that would allow them to do it. Also, again, they have to be consistently washed, they have to be consistently waxed. That will again be somebody local. We also, usually when people are buying cars, they're looking for, they obviously want a one-stop shop. They like to get financing there, they like to have their insurance place. We'd also like to work with a local insurance company. You have Newmarket Bank that is right there. Again, it would be great, promote some of the business, the gas station across the street, they fill up there all the time. Unfortunately, without being approved for the sales, for the car sales, we just don't have the revenue. I don't have anybody to lease it. And we cannot get the revenue to do any more to the building, to actually demolish it, to the grading. The last quote that I got on just the demolition of the house was close to $50,000. And that does not include the fill. And so if we're looking for the overall plan, is to try to get to the 2030 plan where we can put this mixed use. That's why we are requesting the interim use. But again, I want to stress that it is an interim use. This is just for a short period of time. And I hope that the economic conditions will improve, that we can actually get to that point sooner than later. But of course, none of us can tell, first coming out of COVID, what is going to be the commercial space going to look like? What is that demand going to look like? And so really kind of in a nutshell here, to kind of surmise everything, is that basically we're looking at, do we want a parking lot that is pretty much, unregulated on the aspect of the condition of the vehicles that can be parked there, and 2 empty buildings? Or we're looking for a business that we can actually have down here that will actually generate the revenue for us as the owners of the property to allow us to finish off what we started there, to have an appealing building right now, be able to tear down, put the proper grading, and then at the right time, we're already that far ahead when it comes time to put the commercial and the mixed-use residential there. So that is pretty much in a nutshell, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, because unfortunately, that, we will not be able to continue with remodeling of the existing building to make it appealing. And we will not be able to, remove the house and, put a proper grading there. So again, in the short term, we actually accomplish two goals. The short term, we get something that is visually appealing, it's another business here, we have mint to near mint cars. And in the long term, if we're looking for that mixed use, we've already accomplished that. We're already that much more forward by removing the house, getting the proper grading, getting everything done. And again, this is something, again, we can't tell what the future is, but again, the city council can put conditions on these things, the number of the vehicles, the type of signage. If this comes, let's say it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years for this interim use. I mean, the risk is on the investor here for us and the money that we're putting into the existing building that is gonna be there. Because it is really up to the city council at that point to approve or deny if we were to request it. But there is a definitive date that will be set on this interim use. So with that, thank you very much for letting me speak, and if anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Do you know, I know this is probably an impossible question, but like what kind of a time period you would be looking at for the interim?
We would say a minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
And if I think that is reasonable, hopefully, sometimes people have a short-term memory, everybody's quick to get back to everything, hopefully office space and everything like that comes to demand, but that's a key component of the mixed use. I mean, residential could be, if you were just to put a residential building up there today, that would be great, but the vision right now is to have that mixed use, and the commercial demand is just not there. And that's gonna be the main, that will bring in more revenue than the rental units that would be above it.
So when you bought the building, what was your initial thought, or what was your vision on what you were gonna do?
Well, we always had this as a long-term vision to put the mixed use there. But what we were looking at that time was that the person that, the company, A Plus Auto, that is currently there, they're using it as an office, and they were actually doing 90 to 95% online sales. So basically, that was just gonna be an office for them. But what has kind of ironically happened is that since there's been a car crunch, basically, for a lack of a better term, the inventory of cars have gone way down. Then now what people are doing is they're impulse buying. So instead of and A Plus Auto's niche is actually having vehicles, they get better vehicles at a lower price, because they'll go further to go get them. So they can actually, instead of before, when people would go and take their time and look at 1 or 2 or 3 different cars, that's why they could do a lot of this online. But now, people are worried that they see that car that is 20 minutes from them, they're gonna go buy it right away, because 2 hours, 3 hours later, it might be gone, and you can't order another one that maybe wait a week, or you get another one that has a different color. So like, again, they were more looking at it as an office, but now conditions have changed where they need more of a presence, of a drive-by presence, so that people can see it, because that seems to be a lot of the other businesses, or specifically the car lot that's in New Prague, that is what's now generating, they saw the exact same thing, and what's generating a lot of their business is the drive-by traffic. And right now, nobody really knows what's there. I mean, there are some cars there, people don't know if it's an automotive, people don't know if it's a repair shop, people don't know what it is. And they are prohibited from selling on the car. So even if somebody was to come there, they're not allowed to sell that car on the property. That's why we're asking for the interim use. They have an office, theoretically, there is a parking lot, they can have the office, they could park the cars, but they can't walk out and sell the car.
Okay. I guess, I don't know if I necessarily got the answer to the question. During your due diligence, before you purchased the property, what was your goal in development of the property? What exactly did you want there? Did you plan on leasing the building the entire time?
Yes, leasing the building in the short term.
Okay.
Until demand came up, but the long-term goal of it was to put, and still is to put the mixed-use commercial residential.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Is the current person that's using it, renter, whatever, are they following the zoning orders right now?
Yes, there was some questions about the number, or there was some confusion about the number of cars that were there. There were a lot of vehicles now. They have now removed pretty much every one of them.
I guess, city staff, can you speak to that issue? At one point, I know we were engaged in a zoning violation action, enforcement action on the property. Can you speak to the status of that?
Yeah, it was, I think about 2 months ago, Chief Jewell had said one of his officers, or himself, I don't recall, had noticed a sales sheet in the car window, which had kind of indicated to us that maybe sales were occurring on the property. And so we had sent a letter to both the tenant and Encore Holdings as the owner, just to confirm and reiterate that vehicles cannot be sold on the lot. And we had been told that they are not physically being sold there. They are just maybe being parked there in the meantime.
And may I comment about, the actual vehicle that had the sticker was bought from another dealership that had the sticker on it when they drove over there. So it wasn't that they put the sticker on there. It was that they actually got it from the car lot from New Prague that had the sticker, and they just hadn't removed it at that time. But once we had found out about it, once we heard that there was an issue with that, we rectified it immediately.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have any more questions
Okay.
for you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, thank you.
So yeah, I'll just open up for discussion, or if you have questions for staff, we can take those too.
Do you guys have questions for staff?
I don't have any questions for staff.
So I do, if this were denied, then what's stopping them from doing what they're doing right now?
Well, the building is permitted to be used as an office. That is a permitted use in the B2 district. And the city did have to sign off on a zoning verification kind of sheet through the state to allow a broker's license for the motor vehicles. Specifically a broker's license, they're doing online sales only. The only thing really that we could do if we are aware that sales are actually occurring on the property is communicate with the state to see if that can be revoked.
So I guess, I mean, if they are not allowed to sell cars on the property, but they're allowed to have the cars on the property and use the property as an office for everything other than actually signing the paperwork, aren't we kind of in the same spot? Or what am I missing that this?
If they can broker, I guess if they can broker out of there, which means then they're having people call in wanting to buy cars, they go out, they look for them, right? They bring the car there, they fill the paperwork out at Joe Schmo's shop or whatever, come back, they give them the keys over there, they come back, grab the car and go, right? Is that basically how this works?
Yeah, I mean, I think the intent when we had originally discussed with the Gensmers about the use that was occurring there is that it was completely online and the car would never be brought to this lot. So the broker that was there would find a vehicle, get the purchase agreement or whatever with the client, and then they would go get the car. That's kind of it. So I think it's the question of just whether the inventory is actually being stored on the lot.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. You can split hairs about where the transaction is taking place, but there are vehicles that are coming from someplace else to that location that are involved in a sale and go someplace else. So there's if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. And I guess I would pose that question to the city attorney and to staff. What's the difference?
Right.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing sales on the property.
If they're bringing the cars there to sell.
So essentially, they shouldn't be stored there. Okay. My first thought is I'm not a huge fan of going against what our planning commission has spoken as a majority, and they've reviewed it thoroughly. I know it wasn't unanimous, but I think there's something to say that we have another body that's been appointed by the council to review these things and look at zoning and look at the comprehensive plans and so on and so forth. So it's in my opinion that I wouldn't want to go against that. I think that they did a nice job reviewing it, and I think that they came to the right conclusions based on what our comprehensive plan is and what the zoning ordinances look like now. So that'd be my opinion on it.
I can go first. I agree with Bryce. I don't want to go against what the planning commission has due diligently done. I also am a little nervous and skeptical about cars being stacked up for sale. It's already a difficult corner when you're coming down there to take a left out of there, and it's a big walkway for kids to cross the streets. There's cars all the way around that corner. I think it's a hazard. I know people can say they're not gonna park in the front, but they do. So I would.
I just don't think it's a good location.
Mm-mm.
Well, one thing we have to keep in mind is that this would be a tax change that would apply to the whole district, so this would not, this isn't location specific. The permit, if it was changed, they would be allowed to come in for an return use permit for that location. But this tax change would apply to the whole downtown district.
Yeah, that is not what we have for a vision of our downtown.
I agree. Now it's your turn.
Now it's your turn.
I don't disagree with the things that Commissioner Smith had said. Can you confirm, you were not able to be at the public hearing? So
That is correct.
they didn't necessarily hear all of the information that he was providing tonight, which is what's kind of making me him and ha. Because I feel like there were some points that, and if you can speak to the commission, or the planning commission meeting, if that, you know, if, I guess I don't want to pick up the spot. Like, do you think that would have changed anybody's mind? And
Yeah, I
not
won't
saying
even
it's
hazard to
decision,
guess.
but no, I'm not gonna ask that. But, I mean, I like the idea of having, you know, like bringing more business in with another business and being able to promote other businesses using that business. I'm still kind of confused because I feel like there's a loophole here where they're gonna be able to do what they're doing with a workaround unless we're going to like investigate if car sales are happening on the property. So that's one thing that I don't know that I necessarily understand. I don't know. Do you have anything to, like, on that point of, like, there's a workaround here where I just feel like they're gonna be able to do what they're doing anyway. And if we can have more control over what's happening, do we want that instead?
Yes, it's my understanding there is an ongoing code enforcement action regarding what they are on the property. With, as I understand it, their hope that they can, if this is approved and they can get approved interim use permit, they would be able to continue to do it. And as staff, we have not aggressively pursued the enforcement action because they have the application submitted. So we want to go through the process and ultimately it's going to be something that's followed.
Were Joe and Josh able to provide any input?
No. If it's something where you would like to have their input,
Yep,
you
if-
have to continue it to the next.
We can
meeting.
continue this if we want to. And if we don't have full consensus right now, then that would be my suggestion, is that we go ahead and continue it to the next meeting.
That's the route I would go with.
Okay. Continue to the next meeting.
Okay, so we need a motion to continue this item to the July 8th city council.
So moved.
Not getting a second for me, sorry.
Second. So, motion by Amanda. Sorry. Second by Timmerman. Okay.
Do we need a vote?
Oh, we do need a vote. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, council.
Yep. All right. Next is Pete's Hill.
Renee will be making a presentation on this item. Should also note that John Whitman, representing the development group, is also here this evening if there's any questions.
I actually have a question. So John is in the same brokerage, real estate brokerage as I am. There is no financial part of my piece of it, but he is within the same brokerage. So my question would be if there's any conflict of interest.
So do you benefit financially from him in any way?
No.
Then no, fine.
Perfect. Sounds good, thank you.
need Haley for, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Tonight we have 3 requests before you related to the Pete's Hill development, to amend their PUD ordinance, to amend their development contract, and to award a bid related to a water main extension. The city council approved PUD ordinance, which approved the Pete's Hill development in 2019. The development contains 22 single-family lots and 23 townhome lots. In conjunction with that approved development approval, there was an approved landscaping plan, which was really kind of broken down into 2 specific areas. The landscaping along 273rd Street on the south side of the plat, and then some landscaping between the single-family and twin home portion of the development. The landscaping plan submitted at the time was very robust. It contained a lot of trees, and the type of tree species that were proposed were a lot of hardwoods and spruce trees that had a very significant height upon full maturity, up to and over 100 feet in height. The developer has decided to apply for an amendment to that landscaping plan. As you all know, the views from the Pete's Hill development are one of the biggest benefits of the development. So they have chosen to apply for an amendment to the landscaping plan, which really minimizes the trees in those areas and brings them down to a much smaller scale and are more ornamental in nature. So these are actual pictures of the different trees that are proposed under the revised landscaping plan. This did require a public hearing before the Planning Commission, which was held on May 25th. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the revised landscape plan with one recommendation to work with a property owner to determine acceptable plantings on their lot. Their home is currently under construction. It's a very large home. And then also with a recommendation for additional screening trees on one lot at the entrance to the development. So the revised landscaping plan was prepared by Hartman. The landscape, there are 2 additional trees that have now been added as recommended by the Planning Commission. Okay, moving on to the amendment to the development contract. The development contract included a provision for the developer to construct a water line that would provide looping to the entire Windrose neighborhood. This was considered really a piece of system infrastructure that, as long as the Pete's Hill development was under construction, the city basically agreed to reimburse them for or credit them for the cost of that water line, which at the time was the estimated construction cost was about $33,000. Of course, that took into account the pricing at the time, construction prices at the time, and the fact that the contractor was already mobilized on the site. The developer was also required to construct a trail from the north end of the development into the Pete's Hill Park, and that was to be paid for by the developer and was considered one of the trade-offs for allowing some deviations from the city code within their development. Unfortunately, both of these items required acquisition of an easement through the tower property located just north of their development. At the time of platting, all indications from both the developers' conversations with the tower representatives and attorneys and my personal contact with them, all indications were that it was going to go very smoothly and that it would take just a matter of months and it would all be completed. Unfortunately, that is not how it worked out. The tower company stopped responding to our inquiries and we were unable to obtain that easement until just this spring through initiating quick condemnation on the property. So we have now secured the easement. Unfortunately, now the developer contractor has demobilized from the site and there has been price increases, at least in terms of the water main, which we would be responsible for. So staff in meeting with the developer has is basically suggesting or recommending that the city take over these two projects. The developer reimburse us for the water main, the credit that we had given them for the water main, which was $333,344, and that they also pay us the cost to construct the trail in the development. So the third item, the second item again is to approve the amendments to the development contract for those couple of items. And then the third item is to actually award bids. The city engineer has facilitated bids. We had to go out 2 times to receive 2 bids. On the project, Krieger Excavating was the lowest responsible bidder. And we're asking the council tonight to approve the award of the contract for the water main at $52,290, which would be paid from the city's water infrastructure fund. And then at a future meeting, we just didn't have the paperwork pulled together to award the trail, which we would anticipate to present to you in July for award of that. So the requested action tonight is, as shown on the screen, can be handled all in one motion.
Any questions? Discussion?
Did you say all in one motion, Kimmy?
Who wants to read that?
You could just say per the screen.
So if you'd like to move it, you can just make a motion for the staff recommendation.
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Amanda, second by Bryce. Okay, and a vote?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you. Need a notary?
All right, so then we go on to reports. Administration, do you have anything?
I have nothing specific unless there are questions for me.
I did. Yeah, went up there, remarkably, there was a,
2 less.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Strawberries and no Chef
There was 2
Earl.
less vendors?
No strawberries and no Chef Earl today.
No
Part of it
ship.
is the time of year, part of it is the weather conditions. For instance, the cut flower vendor that would normally be there, he has no inventory because of drought. And so, I was talking with Kevin about this, he had discussions with St. Paul's Farmers Market, they said this is pretty normal, the first one's kind of big. For attendance, this one, they had a couple vendors, they'll have more vendors coming in line as they start to harvest as we get later in the season. He also says tends to be that early in the season, everybody comes because it's great, because it's open, and it drops off, and as you get into July, the attendance starts to pick up normally, and they'll have more vendors as they get later in the season, because they're gonna actually have goods to sell right now. It's just kind of that tough time of the year, and weather conditions this year for growing have been fantastic, so.
I'm excited for sweet corn. I'll get some sweet corn.
there's a circuit too, so like Chef Carl, or Earl, he went to another place and he's coming, the vendor said he's coming back next week, so maybe every 2 weeks.
Perfect. I'll be
Yep.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yum.
So good. So good.
But the vendor said markedly down today, but also oppressive heat and high humidity keeps people away. So the last one was warm, but it was inaugural, so they're positive about it still.
There was
That's good.
still a lot of cars and a lot of people rolling
Yep.
in there when I was there today, so.
Yeah,
You were there fairly early, weren't you?
I was there around 3, I think.
She's 2 on the dot. She got there 2 on the dot.
Well, by her post, I kind of thought, man, she must have been there right after.
Yeah, Kevin said the St. Paul Farmers Market
I'm
folks
crazy about
have
cars.
they're completely unconcerned.
Yeah, and there was people pulling quite a few cars at 4:30ish when I was there.
Because I know my sister went last week around 4:30, and there was like the meat guy was gone, strawberries were gone. Like, yeah, they probably sold out,
Right,
because it was popping.
Mhm.
So
That's
it's-
great.
good, good. Okay, anything else on administration or farmer's market?
It's
Off
its own
topic.
category, its own category on reports.
He asked
Exactly.
questions, so I'll take that.
Public Works,
Nothing?
please.
We rolled out the new graphics. Have you guys seen them rolling around?
They look awesome.
They
A lot
look
of
awesome.
positive feedback.
Very
I've
hard
been
to see
getting
coming
texts.
though.
Don't have enough time to hit the brakes, because I don't see the card yet.
Sorry, Mayor. Other than that, we're really excited. Next week, our new hire starts, and we're hoping for another batch of pinning swearing in later in July, the second meeting. He's super excited to get here. And other than that, open for questions if you have any.
Only comments about the car dealership is there's a huge lack of consistency on what we're seeing there. It's like they can't make up their mind of where they want to park. Some of the issues are there's a legal alley there and the adjacent property owner. And it seems like one day you roll by and there's 20 cars in there and I don't even know how they're moving. And today, as he mentioned, was the least cars I've ever seen, which is 2, and I thought that was quite coincidental that he was coming today and there was only 2 cars in there, but it's a lot like stuffing 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag there, and that's our concern, as well as what you voiced about some of the crosswalks and stuff like that. I wasn't addressed, that's why I didn't say anything right away at the time, I didn't know if I should speak on it, but as far as my report, and as far as that property, my recommendation, law enforcement, public safety falls in line with staff recommendation on it. So, I realize they're not here, but I didn't think it was my place to speak at that time,
I
so.
should have asked you.
Well,
It's my bad.
I don't wanna overstep my bounds.
Well, and I kind of looked when I said what I said, thinking you'd chime in, but I'll remember that
Wasn't-
next time.
I
I'll
wasn't
ask.
I just
picking
read
that
your
up.
mind. That's all I did. All I did was just read your mind.
And I think Bryce, cause it's such a busy corner and that's a lot to go in there. And as staff said before, when I was investigating stuff before, the owner said, we condition the cars here, we work on them, that's why we wanted the garage space. And they sold their lift and everything, and then it turned into something else, so.
Well, since I've missed a couple of meetings, when is your other squad getting the new decals on it?
So, since you missed, that car is going out of service.
Okay, thank you.
So it's gonna just be stripped of
Okay.
everything. So I didn't want, and that's my car.
Okay.
So I didn't wanna drive around just a plain black car without any graphics. So what we decided to do, the 3 cars that are graphic are our new cars.
Okay.
This one's being taken out of service and gonna be an investigator car for Craig Bell when he needs to leave the city. And so, we just decided when it gets the equipment taken out, it'll be de-graphicked. And so then the new car that no one's seen yet, cause it's been in the garage the entire time, that'll start rolling out and our entire fleet will be graphic that way.
When's the timeline on that?
Very late this month, next
Okay.
week, we're hoping. We're waiting for critical equipment to come in, a radar and computers.
Okay.
And with the chip shortage,
You don't need those.
you don't need that. You just roll without it for a while. So we're really,
Yeah,
it's
at the
like
mercy
everything
of,
else.
yeah.
But Chris Wahlberg from the fire department and EATI said it's his priority once we get the equipment in.
Awesome. Perfect.
Same car? Are they all gonna be the same? Like, are they all Explorers?
Yes.
Okay.
The next one, we have some interesting choices to make because some other counties, agencies, Belle Plaine are putting online Dodge Charger cars. And I'm kind of old school that I like police cars, so that might be something we look into depending upon, we let them be the guinea pig and see how they hold up and go, so.
Okay. Nice. All right, fire department. Obviously, all out there working.
They're
cleaning.
busy.
They are, we do have 3 new firefighters coming on board.
Oh,
We hired 3 out of our last applicant pool. That actually puts us at 30 firefighters, which is our authorized maximum. So until we have retirements or resignations, we won't be hiring any more firefighters, provided that these firefighters make through probation. They'll be starting the 1st of July, and they'll be starting school in August, and we'll be going through school through the end, and a little bit, I believe, into early next year.
Awesome. Okay. Engineering.
We cleaned up County Road 91. We got about a pickup load of trash. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be because we haven't been there for over a year. But someone made an interesting observation. You know, nobody was driving for a good part of this. And that's where the trash is obviously coming from, especially at the corners. They turn the corner out the window. I don't know why it is, but a lot of liquor, a lot of liquor bottles, little ones, Fireball bottles. Was that you?
That's the chief as he's driving down the road. He's just tossing them out.
Anyway, it's cleaned up and it went well. We had a good turnout, so.
Which part of 91 do you have?
From the roundabout down to 86.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will have, for the first time since I've been serving as city engineer, a contingent at your parade this year.
Ooh, nice.
I hope no one's allowed to bring tomatoes, but we'll be there. So I'm looking
Hope you
forward
got
to
lots
that.
of candy.
We've been advised.
Okay.
Friendly competition going on.
Yeah.
Candy.
And our contractor for the I-35 utilities is pursuing the work diligently. And it's going as well as we expected. No major hiccups so far, so. And the force main on DuPont is pretty much in. I mean, it is in, they're making the last connection now, and they're starting to get ready for water main on two, so
Nice.
Today.
they're moving.
That's awesome.
Down to one lane.
I know.
The
Threw me
grading
off.
is going on for Boulder Heights second edition, correct?
Yep, they've been at that a couple days, and dirt's flying, so,
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome.
And Rich, the yellow liquid in some of those bottles are not liquor.
Yeah, don't drink it.
He doesn't even know what to say. He's speechless.
I don't know if I've ever seen Rich speechless.
I yield my time.
A little late. Thanks for the tip.
I care.
All right, community development.
No updates.
Parks.
We have Family Fun Night going on. Kevin's down there. And we have a farmer's market. I don't know if you guys heard that, but.
Just because we're on parks, Kevin did a really awesome job at the farmer's market and then at the teddy bear band fun night last Thursday, because they were gonna, he cut them off and said, they're gonna work from the back of their set, backwards because the rain was coming in. And then Kevin was like, just kidding, no, it's coming right now. And I was like, let me give my sister a lift right there so we can make it back to your house. And it was hailing. And he made the perfect call, had everybody under the shelter, and it was awesome. So he did a really great job in the whole event. He had a long day.
So,
We have a public safety component, each of the three. I was last week for the teddy bear band. We didn't get set up on time, so there was no presentation, but awesome being there and handing out stickers to all the kids, and it was a great turnout. The baseball game, or the t-ball game
Yeah,
was
t-ball
going,
Oh, that's
it
good.
was all Americana there, because you had the band going, you had t-ball, you had people in the park, it was.
Apple pie?
Where was, the hot
There was
dogs,
no
apple pie.
But
Just short of a
Kevin and
trifecta.
I, we discussed that plan, like, hey, here's where it's coming. Love technology, you can see where it is, and we discussed a safety plan with the shelter and everything, and it kind of worked perfect, so it was an awesome event. So the fire department's doing, next month, they're gonna show kids the gear and stuff, and then the ambulance service is in August, so. Well, new
You might be see something coming up soon. The Parks Commission has had discussions about possibly live streaming events. They're currently working on potentially the option to live stream on the city's Facebook page. They're exploring this for Saturday, the parade. So while you're along the parade route, it would be at the announcer's stand, so you can see the float and hear what the spiel is on it, and then so you'll know what it is when they get to you. The other thing that they're looking at for uses of it is to potentially live stream the family fun nights for those people that might be interested, for the entertainment aspects of it. And then the other thing is they found that some places will, when they have farmers market days, they will go and do a video of like, go speak to each of the vendors, who they are, what they have, and whatnot to promote it. So they're looking at potentially using that aspect and using the city's social media page for that. So my understanding is tonight they were gonna be doing a field test on the webcam and see how well it works, to see if that's feasible, so.
That's a great idea. CCEC.
Last meeting, we hashed out the final details of fire rescue days. So Linda's looking forward to this weekend being over. No. Just kidding.
Did anybody determine how fast I'm supposed to go on the parade? Did you come up with a mile per hour? Because I
Should I
got
ask
yelled at.
Google?
last-
Well, I
think
can
it
say
was-
one thing with certainty, however fast you go, it's not going to be the right speed.
No.
Yeah.
It's either too fast, too slow.
I don't know why I asked.
You did it 2 years ago, didn't you?
Too fast, too
Oh, yeah.
Well, I thought I
Having
was
a good
looking for an official like
I'd say
mile
what,
per hour because
15,
like
20?
Tom said,
5.
I got into school too fast.
Jeez.
Get done.
No wonder why you don't like the graphics.
Imagine a 5-year-old is following you and you want him to keep up, that's how.
Well, let's
what
think about it,
the
the marching band.
95-year-olds?
Yeah, think about the marching band.
And the marching band.
You're
I
shooting
heard-
for the ends of the bell curve, not the middle.
Oh, okay. Good
There's
point.
fewer participants this year too, so we kind of want to draw hours.
So maybe your speed from last year will be perfectly fine.
Okay, good.
How many entries do we have this year?
That's what I.
Okay.
That's not bad, it's down from previous years, but not too much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it normally like 45, 47?
It's been over 50.
Oh,
50 to mid-50s,
Yeah.
recent years.
okay.
I can tell you, I was, after the CCEC meeting, I was texting my small business friends, like, come on. Sign
Got
up.
rich.
Most of them had already signed up. So
Don't
I
think
was
I'm not nervous about it.
Well, I don't know if the people will know what to do with the slide rules you're gonna be throwing out
What happened here? The roles are reversed.
I don't think I have anybody in my company that would know what to do with one either. Except me.
That's awesome. All right, scale.
We did not have any general membership meetings since the last council meeting. However, we did have we did,
There was
The general meeting
the
the
general.
general meeting.
Yep,
Yeah,
that I go to.
yes.
yeah.
It was the day after our last meeting.
Did you want to give a report on
I
that?
can't remember what the topic was.
And obviously you can't either.
It's okay.
Oh, it was the legislative update.
Yes, there was a lot of talk about if we're gonna meet the, if the legislators are gonna meet the budget or not.
But it was kind of short because since nothing was actually decided during the legislative session,
There was a question to talk
and
about.
they haven't completed the special, it was just kind of a lot of, we think this might happen, we think that might happen, so there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of substance to it.
There's a
Okay.
lot of hope.
Yes.
I work for the state, so I'd like them to meet the budget.
Right,
So-
absolutely.
So on July 1, I go to work.
Yes.
Um,
Executive committee?
Executive committee, the primary item on the discussion with the executive committee involves the purchasing of security fencing to go around facilities in the event of protests or social unrest. So if you guys recall, Hennepin County Courthouse, they put up fencing and barriers to keep protesters and stuff from basically coming in and trashing and burning down the building, or up in the cities during recent shootings, the city halls and police departments up there have to do similar things. The potential exists, even though we haven't seen it yet. There's always the potential that an incident could occur. and the city in which it occurs, and the county campus up in Shakopee may need to provide crowd protection and security for their facilities. And so there's been, just like with the discussions with Mobile Field Force, there's been discussions about how do you prepare for that possibility. Fencing is expensive, and there's two approaches that you can take. You can either have a contract with somebody that says, I will deliver it and install it within X period of time after getting the phone call. And that's great because you don't have to pay anything up front. But once you do have to do it, it's really expensive. And there are concerns about, you can sign anything in a contract guaranteeing when you're going to perform. But what guarantees do you have that they'll actually adhere to the contract and perform the way that you're expecting? And at that moment in time, it's too late.
Yeah, even if you're made whole later, it's too late.
And as Tom said, expensive estimate, given of the estimates for the other departments, we're talking 50 grand a month to rent a fence, have it installed. For our little campus, the county facility.
For our campus here, is
Our
50.
little campus. The LEC at the county, their bid was $200,000 a month. And you remember all the talk about the capital, it was like $10 million or whatever for that. You can see where that comes from, and it's really expensive.
So the other option is you can buy it. And then you can either buy it individually, but the most common or the prevailing thought is you basically get a piece of J barrier, so that's that concrete stuff you see along the highway. And then you mount 6 feet of fencing on the top of it, and you just take a bunch of those in sections and just set them end to end to create your perimeter fencing, or your protective perimeter. But that's expensive too. And when you do the numbers, and this is very rough math, but the cost of renting it for 1 month is usually getting you pretty close to the cost of buying it. Not including the gate features that you would have or cost of delivery installation, just the straight cost of the materials. So there's been discussions about how do you deal with this. Do you work collaboratively with the other entities? So you maybe have a stockpile or you have a joint contract to get it done. And the Service Delivery Committee basically tasks a work group headed by Brady to work with the Shakopee Public Works Director and the county traffic engineer who works with those types of contracts to look at the options. And it's currently being discussed. The leading option right now is a hybrid model where there might be a certain amount that's in the county that can go to the primary or most at-risk facility immediately, and then contracts in place to provide supplemental fencing if you're talking more than one facility. So if you could think of it, if you have, let's say, hypothetically, a use of force incident on Highway 169 that involves a mutual aid from City of Savage, City of Shakopee, and the Sheriff's Department, and you have court operation, you have potentially 3 sets of facilities that could potentially be under siege. And then as you move through the process, you could also potentially have courts and the county campus dealing with potential later issues as well. And so what's currently being looked at is what would be the possibility of, let's say, assembling 3,000 feet of this, which would be large enough to do the largest single facility in the county conservatively, stockpiled with, and then you'd use contracts to supplement other facilities as needed. Where do you store it? Who makes decision on where it goes? How do you get it relocated? And so on and so forth. So we're kind of working through some of those details. If there was any sort of either a joint contract or joint purchasing, which jurisdictions are interested in participating in that. So we're currently working through that. I expect we'll work on that through the summer and probably reach some sort of recommendation in the fall that would go back to each individual jurisdiction for a decision.
That sounds like a huge undertaking.
I was super happy to be volunteered for it.
I can tell.
Isn't that called voluntold?
It's voluntary. No one's about it, it was voluntary.
Okay.
It's super important though to get a plan in place, whatever we do.
Well, absolutely it is. It's just a matter of whoever calls first gets it. you know, Belle playing Jordan, they both are at risk and they both call, who's getting it?
Well, in their case, if we had like 3,000 feet, you could probably cover both facilities if they're smaller facilities. But when you start getting to Scott County or the city of Savage or the city of Shakopee, where they have much larger campuses, you start running into, do you need more than 3,000 feet? Or if you have them and another facility that's involved, you'd have to have a contract or you'd have to have more on hand.
And just for, a figure that you know, to surround the entire parking lot to the front of the salt shed, to the sides of the parking lot, all the way around to the street is 1,200 linear feet. So you could cover 2 facilities our size in that 3,000 square feet or linear feet. And that's a big perimeter. If we just did to the, say to the back of the building, to the street, or we did halfway through the parking lot, it could be a lot smaller. It's just that's, so you guys can visualize how much 1,200 linear feet would cover.
We do have the advantage that our facility is a big cement box, so it's a little more secure than some of these city halls, which are all glass, not so.
And we're just kind of teasing Shakopee PD, it has a beautiful brand new, you know what it looks like, and it's all glass on the front. So, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, remember they were both under siege at first because they couldn't figure out which Brooklyn was the one that did that. Brooklyn Park had drive-by and I think 12 shots put through the department. Somebody drove through the lot, fired 12 times through the squad cars, through the glass in the PD. So I guess, you know, when we built that, if you notice, these have regular windows, those have high transom windows. Any type of drive-by shooting through the windows would go up, saving anybody inside. So it's kind of stuff like that. They just, it wasn't part of our thought process back then. It was professional and beautiful and skylights, and now what we have is a lot more advantageous for safety and security.
Are our windows bulletproof?
The front lobby window is bulletproof.
Okay.
The rest of them are not, just because I think it would have been like $25,000 just for the glass for the windows. And we're because of how high they are, it makes them a lot safer, and we're exploring protective film from 3M. You might have seen some of the videos of that. You literally can film over a window and you can let somebody with a baseball bat on it and they won't get through, just because it breaks, but it keeps it together. So there's stuff like that we're looking at.
Excellent. Service Delivery Committee.
Oh, just covered that.
Oh, that's what you just did, sorry.
Yep.
Unified Transit Plan Steering Committee.
There hasn't been any, that's still on hiatus.
Okay.
And if it's okay with the council, are you okay with me just removing it from the, because I think ultimately that might, if it continues to exist, it's gonna morph into a different name or different entity, so.
Sounds good. MBTA.
I have no report.
Okay. I-35.
Next meeting's July 8th.
And Chamber.
Golf tournaments tomorrow?
How many courses did you get?
122 people.
Yeah, 122, so we,
30 some?
God, I think that's more than we had last year, isn't it? Yeah, more than we had last year, so great turnout.
Are you golfing?
I am. I'll be there.
Anybody else in the room golfing?
Am I getting a pizza cutter again this year?
No. Not running a tent this year.
My husband will be there, so.
But I'll have some in my cart, so I guess if somebody flags me down, you know, I'll throw them a pizza cutter.
You always have pizza cutters in your golf cart?
Yeah, all the time. Of course. Koozies and pens and all sorts of goodies.
Nice.
God, I feel like Rich, I just compelled to say when you had a pizza cutter in your cart, it's like, yeah, he's gonna slice all the time.
Did you guys just role reverse
What?
tonight or what happened?
What is going on?
I don't know.
Is this like Freaky Friday?
I was just gonna say, we
I know, I feel weird.
Oh, goodness. All right. Discussion by council.
I just have one thing that I want to say about the car sales. I don't think it's fair to make the decision with just 3 of us. I think that we have 5 for a reason, and so it's one of my drivers for moving it. And my other, I guess, question was, because we seem to be struggling to have a full council, is there any urgency on the work session for the vision and goals?
There,
Are we gonna, like, is
There
there a
is.
need for a special meeting?
we're
Not that I'm
okay-
like woo meetings,
We're
but,
okay if we get to the 8th and we get it done on the 8th.
Okay.
If we're short again, I'm gonna beg you guys to do a special meeting to get it done, because we're starting to eat up all of the contingency that's built into the schedule
yeah.
up until preliminary budget in September. We've already eaten up 2 of our contingency dates, so.
Because I feel like we kind of fell behind last year too, and then it's just like,
Last year we were good, I think it was 20, maybe we did a little bit, 2019 was, we had almost the same thing happen where we had just unforeseen circumstances. We're still okay with playing catch-up. I don't think, not to open up the box too big, but the moving parts in the budget this year are few and fairly straightforward, and you guys are familiar with them. So it's really just how much discussion you guys need. I think it'll be fairly straightforward this year, but we'll need all of a full hour and a half work session for the vision goals, maybe a little more depending on how much discussion you have. So on the 8th, if we don't get done in the hour and a half, rather than continuing it, I would ask you to continue it till after the business meeting that night. And then at that point, we're close to caught up, I think, so.
Since you brought up the car sales deal, and since I said that I didn't want to continue it, I just want to let you know that, hey, I totally respect that, but I'm at the point where it's like, we still need to get business done, and sometimes there's only 3 of us, and it's a quorum, and so that's how we can conduct business, and we're conducting other business, and I know that we don't all agree on that particular item. It's just one of those things where I feel like we're in a situation where we have zoning ordinances for the reason that we do, and we have comp plans, and we spend lots of time on all these different things to plan for the future of the city, and when they clearly outline that's not the direction we want to go, and they're going in a different direction, that's the only reason why I was like, let's get this done and move forward. But I respect that you want everyone here, so.
Well, and if it came down to it where it's just you and I, and then you're solo, I would not have made a decision tonight anyways.
No, and I understand that.
Because those 2 might have either swayed with us or with her, which would have.
I get it.
flipped.
I totally get it.
Okay.
That's just where I was at with it, and that's why I'm like, that's why I wanted to move
I
forward. But
respect that as well, just so you know. Like, I'm all good, I just feel like we have 5 for a reason. And maybe I've been watching too many Lakeville School Board meetings. We're begging for a It's been interesting. TikTok put me onto it.
Bored or what?
No, it's TikTok's fault.
yeah, it's
There's some
TikTok's fault.
controversial school board meetings, so I don't know.
with 9-year-olds, by the way.
By the way, anyways, we'll talk about that.
Let's move on.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, motion by Amanda, second by Bryce.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.